sometimes we are doing things that people want us to do, or that we think will make the church grow. I got some opportunities to go over here and preach. These folk want me to do this. There's a need in the community. All this stuff is right in front of me, but I know what God told me to do. That's purpose. I now understand that my family should be a part of my value system and a priority. Hello, I'm Mike Moore, and welcome to the How to Win podcast. These podcasts are based off 2 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 14. It says, "Now thanks be unto God who always causes us to triumph in Christ." Are you winning, Tiffany?
I am winning.
Are you triumphing?
I am. Hopefully.
Are you doing your thing?
Trying to do it.
You trying to do your thing?
Trying to do that. Triumph in Christ.
Listen, we're so happy to have you with us. We are doing some sessions on my new book. I have a new book coming out. I'm so excited about it. It's called The Big Pivot. In other words, we want to shift our focus from outward success to inward growth. You know, I played basketball when I was in college and in high school, and the word pivot simply in basketball terms means you plant your foot on the floor, and it's called the pivot foot, and then you change your other foot in another direction in order to get a better angle to pass or shoot. It's called the pivot. But in life, the pivot simply means to change your focus, change the way you're doing things, change your priorities, change your goals. It simply means to go in another direction. So we are talking about pivoting from the way we've led in the past. It's so very important that we pivot from the way we function in the past. And in the past, people have had big starts, but they don't finish very well.
You know, I'm excited about this book coming out. I actually didn't know that you use the analogy. I knew the name of the book, but I didn't know you used the analogy of basketball. So on one of I applied for a speaking engagement, and I talked about how late bloomers can win too.
Okay.
And I'm talking about how you can make a pivot from your life, and you may start in one way, but you pivot and continue in a different way. I
think that we have to but we have to change the way we've led in the past. Sometimes people start things and they really excited about it, and people like new things. You know, they start off, but they don't finish it.
Yeah.
They don't finish it. They fizzle out. So we're going to be talking about self-discipline, focus, and winning the battle against distractions. Wow. Self-discipline. We're going to talk about focus, and we're going to talk about winning the battle against distraction. All three of those things. Self-discipline, focus, we got to get into that, and distractions. We got to talk about distractions.
Okay, let me ask you something before we get into the nitty gritty of everything. So focus is an area that we're going to be talking about. When you think about the books that you wrote, you did Help My Mind Was Under Attack, and that was really needed in that time because we were going through so many things with the pandemic and different things like that. This book is The Big Pivot. Why do you feel like the focus of this one was so important for you to come out during this time?
I think it was important, like I said in our first episode, I think we're experiencing a crisis of character. A crisis of character is when a leader's leadership is called into question by the world. In other words, due to dishonesty or hypocrisy or sexual immorality or infidelity or not just keeping our word. You know, I think people are calling us on the carpet. And normally when you see people rise to the top, usually a falling or a failure to remain on the top is due to a character issue. So the book is really character based. Now we're talking about different things like integrity. Today we're going to talk about self-discipline. We're going to talk about I talk about in the book, and we're going to do a session on humility and pride, and then competence. So it's a lot of different facets of character, but it's so important that we have character and integrity in our leadership.
Yeah.
And so this book is not a nuts and bolts book. You know, how to do strategy, how to set goals, how to establish vision, casting. It's not that kind of a book. Okay. It's designed to make sure that we're healthy, we're whole, we're strong on the inside.
Yeah.
And in the past, we focus on external success, growth, revenue, influence, all those different things, and they're important. But I think that leadership should be the outworking of who you are and who you really are. And we talked about integrity in our last session, not what you appear to be, but who you really are. So in this session, very practical, because we're going to talk about self-discipline. What is self-discipline? In my book, I say that self-discipline.
That's what I was going to ask you. You taking my question.
Am I taking your question? So ask your question.
Yeah.
Ask your question, and then I'll answer her question.
So you talk about self-discipline in the book without giving too much of the book away. Can you explain to the people what self-discipline is?
Self-discipline is the choice and the ability to do what you need to do when you need to do it, whether you feel like it or not, or whether you want to or not. The capacity, the choice to do what you need to do. Okay. As leaders, there are certain things that we need to do. And timing is so very important. There are things we need to do, but we need to do it at a certain time.
Yeah.
You know, and oftentimes we not feel like, or we may not want to do it.
Yeah.
So discipline is that choice, that ability, that capacity to do what I need to do when I need to do it, whether I want to or not. The flip side of it, let's flip self-discipline. The flip side of it, it is the choice to not do what I want to do when what I want to do contradict my godly values.
Gotcha.
Sometimes as leaders, we want to do something that will conflict our godly values and actually hinder or abort our destiny.
Okay.
Though we want to do it.
Yeah. Okay, we'll come back to that part. We're going to come back.
In other words, we want to do some things we shouldn't do.
Yeah. We're going to come back to that part. So let's go back into the self-discipline part. In the book, you talked about you need to finish what you start. And for some people, that could be a challenge. Why do you think that may be a challenge for people to finish what they started? I think
being intentional from a knowledge standpoint is important. And I think being intentional from a behavior standpoint. From a knowledge standpoint, finishing does not start with finishing. Did you get that? That's a little twist there. From a knowledge standpoint, finishing does not start with finishing. Finishing starts with commitment.
Okay.
There's something that I have to commit to, and we may need to delve into what that is. There's something that I have to commit to.
Okay.
And then secondly, once I commit to that, I have to focus on that. And a part of that focusing is to resist competing issues, resist distractions, resist pressures, and then I finish.
Okay.
So commitment, focus, finish.
Okay.
If I don't make a commitment, I'm not going to finish.
Do you think that you said commitment, focus, finish. What do you think that most people are challenged at the most? Is it the commitment part, the focus part, or the finishing part?
I think in both of them. Let me explain the commitment part. Commitment simply means to make a firm decision to do something. A firm decision. And the word decision comes from the Latin word, and it means to cut away. So if I make a commitment, I got to cut away all options. For example, okay, let's use a natural example. You're in that dating world.
Okay.
You want a
husband,
committed man, right? And eventually you want a committed husband. Well, commitment is a firm decision to be your husband.
Yeah.
To be faithful. But that decision means to cut away from, to cut away all options. I in my book, I wrote about a explorer. He was a leader, but his name was Hernando Cortez. He wanted to invade the Mayans in southwest Mexico. So they got on the ship, all his men, and they went in that direction. Then they got off the ship, went up the mountain, and the Mayan village was down in the valley. When the soldiers got up to the mountain, they looked back, and they saw smoke from where the ships were. And he had ordered the people who were remaining with the ships to burn the ships. Now, the reason he wanted to burn the ships, because he wanted, we gonna fight and win, or we gonna fight and die. But we going to fight.
Yeah.
We are not going to go back. So he was cutting off the option of them being able to run away. So that's what commitment is. You can't finish anything you're not committed to. That's a firm decision that I'm going to do this, or I'm going to go this way, or I'm going to have this, or I'm going to be this. It's a firm decision, which means you cutting away all options. Now, once you make that firm decision, you're on your way.
Right.
You're on your way. But commitment is not an event. So you can't have an event mentality. It's a process. And many people, they want what they want right now.
Okay.
But you can't commit to anything with an event mindset.
So I think about
that's just step one.
So I think about people who are making commitments at the beginning of the year.
Okay.
In the middle of the year. Most of those commitments that most people made, they probably not doing them now, right? And so I think people have the thought process that they are going to stay committed to it. What happens between that January through July part? Okay.
I'm going to challenge the statement that most people make commitments at the beginning of the year. No. Most people make declarations.
Okay.
They don't make commitments.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
And a commitment you saying is, I'm going to do this no matter what.
Right. It's a firm decision that I am going to do this and I'm cutting away all options. See, a lot of people, they say, okay, I'm committed to lose weight.
Right.
I'm committed to lose it. I am committed to lose it. Well, there are certain things that you've got to cut away in order to be committed. You can't eat all the cake you want to, drink whatever you want to, never exercise, because you got this to do and you got this to do and you got this to do. And so you got so many competing issues and competing concerns. Most people never get the commitment.
Gotcha.
They have an ambition, they have a desire, but they never get to the commitment stage, is where you are going to do this, a firm inward decision that I'm going to do this. And I'm a firm believer that once a person make a firm commitment, not just a desire, because everybody got desires, but a commitment, then there are no other options. There's no other options.
But now I think...
And then focus.
Well, I was going to say, but now then it goes into that focus part. Because I feel like if it was that simple as to be committed, then most people would be successful.
No, all three of them are important.
Right.
See, all three, discipline to commit, discipline to focus, and self-discipline to finish. So the focus part, now I've got to concentrate on this. And I want to think, even though I know it was a team effort, and even though I know it was God's grace that allowed me to pastor for 42 years and 8 months, but I do think it was commitment and it was focus. Because when I pastored, that's where my attention was. My attention was not going to different places and traveling, although I believe some ministers are called to that. I felt like I want to build something and then showcase it. I want to build something that's tangible, that's real, and then I feel like I can showcase it. I think the mistake that a lot of leaders make is they got too many things that they are trying to do.
Right.
That's not focus. When you have too many things that you're trying to do, it dilutes your energy. It dilutes your money. It dilutes your resources. It dilutes your time. So what you end up doing is give a little time, a little money, a little energy to this, a little time, a little money, a little energy to this, little time, little money, a little energy to this. I think that leaders sometimes, they're trying to do too many things.
Let me ask you a personal question, staying in this direction. Because I feel like you stayed focused not only in leadership of the church, but you also stayed focused when it came to being a husband, being a father, and different things like that.
Yes.
When you have so many things pulling on your time, you personally, how did you stay focused with doing all of that? And then the second question is, how can a person stay focused if they have an opportunity that's out of this world?
Okay, wow, that's some good stuff, Tiff. That's a good question. Okay, for me, and I think this would be for others as well, I think there should be some parameters or factors that causes you to focus, okay? Purpose, okay, should be a factor. Values should be a factor. Priorities. Okay, so I wasn't doing all this right in the beginning.
Okay.
I wasn't as focused as I should have been in the beginning. Okay. But purpose is what God wants you to do. It's what God wants you to be. It's your God assignment. If you don't find out what that is, then you're going to be, watch this now, you're going to be led by needs. You're going to be led by ego aspirations. You're going to be led by people. I'll give you a classic illustration of that. In Mark chapter 1, Jesus Christ went into this city and he ministered. Okay. Then he went to Peter's house, and Peter's wife, mother was sick. He healed her. So while he was there, folk found out he was there, and all these people came from all over the village. The Bible said they were crowded at the door. This is late evening, and the Bible said he healed many that were sick. He cast out many demons. So that tells me, if the sun had set, it was late evening, that tells me all that ministry time went into the late evening. So let's say 12 o'clock. Okay. 12 o'clock he finished ministering to the people. Okay, he had to go to sleep sometime. So the scripture says, this Mark chapter 1, he rose up early in the morning before daylight, went out and prayed. While he was there, Peter and some of the other disciples were searching for him, and they found him, said, where you been? Everybody's back at the house, and they waiting on you. They need you. So all these people back at that house, sick people, bound people, people in need. Jesus said, no. He said, we must go to the other city. Now listen what he says. He said, for this purpose was I called. Now, if he had been led by needs, he went back to the house because the need's there. If he'd been led by ego aspirations, it make him look good to have all these people around here. He was led by purpose. So the key, when you got all these competing demands, like you were saying, okay, what's your purpose? Okay, what does God want you to do? For me, I knew God wanted me to pastor Faith Chapel. I knew that. All this other stuff, I didn't know nothing about that. Yeah. I had no word from God to do all this other stuff. So I just spent quality time doing this because I know this. Sometimes we are doing things that people want us to do, or that we think will make the church grow. I wasn't doing that. Then values. You talked about family. I didn't understand that at first, but once I got a revelation, I saw my father in the faith. He talked about family. He talked about marriage. Talked about his kid. Oh, light bulb came on.
And that's what I was going to ask you. When did you get that shift that you need to realign your priorities? That's when you saw him through the work, through the knowledge of it.
You need an example. You need a contemporary role model. You need somebody that's doing what you want to do. And so when I listen to his sermons and
hold on, you said you need a role model to do what you want to do, but you didn't know that should have been a priority. So how did you come into realization? Do you feel like that was
okay? When I'm listening to him teach, he's talking about his marriage. Okay. He's talking about his kids. And all of a sudden now I realize that's supposed to be a priority.
I got you.
And so family became a part of my value system. So now I got purpose. I know what God wants me to do. I got a value system that makes family a priority. Okay. So now everything else that's outside of that, I'm not going to do that. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? Okay, I got some opportunities to go over here and preach. These folk want me to do this. There's a need in the community. All this stuff is right in front of me. But I know what God told me to do. That's purpose. I now understand that my family should be a part of my value system and a priority. So now I actually started a day where because my priorities were off, I said, okay, Monday, I'm not preaching on Mondays. I'm not counseling on Mondays. I'm not visiting nobody on Monday. That's Pete's day. Monday is my wife's day. That's her nickname. Pete is her nickname. Got a boy. She had the boy nickname. So I decided. I even told the congregation. I said, "Now listen, y'all. I love y'all, but I can't do nothing on Monday." I said, "Now if you die, I'm gonna work real hard because you can't die close to Monday. I'm gonna work real hard to try to do your funeral. We're going to push it away from Monday." I told him, I said, "Now I'm not doing nothing on Monday." So I started putting it on my schedule, on my calendar. This is what I'm going to do. So now, do I have competing demands? Do I have expectations from people? Absolutely. But I'm saying no to those things because I'm focusing on this. And the parameters is purpose and values and priorities. If you never discover purpose, you never have a value system. Value means this is important to me. Priority means this is before that. Okay? So now I'm going to, whenever I'm not ministering, especially on Bible study, I'm going to be to all y'all events. Okay? I'm going to be to your band concerts. I'm going to be to your games. I'm going to be to that. Because now that's very important. Yeah. So to me, if you don't establish purpose, values, and priorities, you will never be focused.
Let me ask you this question because I feel like I bring a different perspective. You speaking from the perspective of a married man, so I'm coming from the perspective of single female or single or whatever it is. Okay. So right now my priorities are totally different from what they would be once I get married.
Right.
How do you advise the person who is single? Because you have some singles who want to get married. You have some singles, they may not want to get married, but their priorities may be in different ways. How do you advise a person, one who is single and they want to get married eventually, how should they prioritize without losing themselves certain things? And then what do you say to the person who is single and they may not ever looking to getting married or anything like that, but work may be their priority?
Okay. Well, here again, let's talk purpose because purpose is still important.
Okay.
Purpose for the single person does not begin when they get married. Purpose began in eternity past. So whether a person ever get married, some people don't want to get married.
Right.
God still has a purpose for the single person. Now, it may be in ministry, it may not be. It can be in business. It can be in education. It can be in entertainment. But whatever it is, it can be in media. Whatever it is, God has a purpose for every person.
Yeah.
So when you are seeking God to discover, okay, what you want me to do, what you've called me to do, now that's going to be something that you're going to focus on. And then you have to focus on, you have to set some priorities. What do you value? Do you value work? Do you value family? What are your values? And so then you got to set priorities. Okay, God is going to be first. You're not married, so a husband ain't going to be, if you got children as a single person, they're going to be next to God, and then your work, church, and all those. So you set your priorities about what's first, what's second, what's third as a single person. Because as a single person, you should still value family. So where does that family go? If you got kids, you know they're going to be they're going to be your number one human priority because you're not married. God, then your children, then you got to decide what comes next. Church should be somewhere because you're going to be learning how to live the godly faith life from the ministry of the word. So the church should be somewhere in there. Your work should be somewhere. Your friends should be somewhere. And you have to establish that. But here's the thing. Let's talk about friendships. you got to establish priorities when it comes to friendship. Mm-hmm. Because you got to fit somewhere. Think about it. You want to exercise. There are things you want to do. There's some growth things education may be important to you. School may be important. Uh-huh. So you got to prioritize. You can't have a bunch of friends if you got all these other priorities.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I guess I was also thinking it from the perspective of, because now I talk to women who are successful in their business, who are single, men who are successful in their business. And because they're older, they're so accustomed to doing things the way they want to do it, because they don't have to prioritize, a relationship or anything like that. But then when it comes to now, they're in the space of wanting to date. I know it's a shift, but I guess it's a tougher shift if you have prioritized the success of your business for so long, and now you have to shift it into a dating relationship.
Right.
I guess I was just thinking of more of that perspective, because I'm seeing more women and men now having to shift because they've had the career or the relationship with God as their main priority for so long, and now having to shift into that relationship aspect.
Well, it's going to seem strange the way I communicate this. That shift is a process.
Yeah.
And it involves not just interacting with somebody, a dating partner. It involves educating yourself. Mm-hmm. In other words, if I was single, okay, and naturally, if you're single, for the most part, you're going to be focusing, if you got kids, you're going to be focusing on them. Mm-hmm. You're going to be focusing on your relationship with God.
Right.
If you got a career, you're going to be focusing on that. And now you want a relationship. Mm-hmm. Well, what I would do, I would start educating myself about relationships. Mm-hmm. I would start studying, Googling, about relationship, because see, a relationship is going from me to we, and there's a mind renewal that has to take place. I think sometimes people enter into heavy relationships too quick.
Yeah.
I think you need to renew your mind, spend time. That doesn't mean you don't date, but you don't get serious and stuff, because you need to make the shift. You got to make this shift. It happens all the time. You see single people get in relationships and they're still trying to operate as a single. Mm-hmm. And then they get engaged and they're still trying to operate as a single.
Yeah.
And then they get married and still trying to operate as a single. So they never made the shift from me to we.
Yeah.
And I think there's a mind renewal and there's a time element in that. And sometimes people are not even prepared to have a relationship. Mm-hmm. And I think it takes time to make that shift, especially if you spend a lot of years focusing on yourself. I think people need to begin to renew their mind about dating, reading books on dating, reading books on engagement, reading books on marriage and all that, and get some understanding about it. And then you're going to be moving into it with knowledge.
That's good. Okay. Thank you for sharing that part. Let's now refocus back into the part that we were talking about when it comes to self-discipline. So you said that you have to have a commitment, then you have to have focus, and then the last one was?
I said in the focus, that's concentrated effort on what that purpose is, that value is, that priority. Concentrated but in this space here, you're going to have competing demands, expectations, untimely opportunities. Okay.
Let's talk about that. How do you say it's an untimely opportunity? How do you say no to it if it's a great opportunity, but it may not fit in the focus of where you at right now? Or do you not deny it, but do you not take that opportunity that's presented?
Okay.
How do you navigate that aspect of it?
Okay, let's go into that, because that's very important. That first commitment part is critical. You understand what I'm saying? It is critical. And sometimes an opportunity can be untimely.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what do you mean by untimely? Okay, does it fit where you want to go?
Yeah.
Where you've decided, does that opportunity fit?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, are you prepared for it?
Mm-hmm.
Because you can have an opportunity you're not even prepared for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're not prepared for it. Does it fit your resources?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's an opportunity, but does it fit your resources?
Mm-hmm.
Does it fit the season you're in?
Mm-hmm.
Does it fit your mental space, the mental position that you're in? Is this a season that fits you?
Mm-hmm. Because
sometimes it can be the right thing, but it's the wrong time.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question on that. Do you think that God can present opportunities to you that you're not prepared for?
Yes, but you need to know that.
Okay.
Okay, so let me ask you. This is good stuff. Okay, this is good. Jesus taught a parable. Okay, and I'm going somewhere with that question.
Okay.
Can he give you an opportunity that you're not prepared for? In Mark chapter 4, he taught the parable of the sower, and the seed fell on 4 different soils. One of the soils was thorny, had thorns in it, and the thorns choked the seed and it didn't produce. Well, when Jesus gave definition and meaning to what the thorns were, they were distractions. Okay? Cares of this world, deceitfulness of riches, lust of other things. One of those distractions were mental.
Yeah.
They were distractions of your mind. You can be distracted and not focus because of worry. You pull in all directions in your mind. Sometimes it can be legitimate responsibility. For example, I'm getting there.
Okay.
Once I graduated, I was late going to law school, applied late, so I had to work a year before I went to law school. I was working that year in Kentucky, and my dad became sick. So my mother wrote me and told me she needed me because I was in Kentucky. She's in Birmingham. She couldn't handle him by herself. He was sick. Okay. I came home. When I came home, it was caregiving 24/7. I couldn't hardly go to church. I couldn't hardly do anything. It was a legitimate responsibility, but it was a distraction. You see what I'm saying? I couldn't focus on anything. I couldn't focus on nothing because I had to focus. Sometimes distractions are cares, legitimate responsibilities, but they pull you away. That's what a distraction does. It pulls you away. And then the second distraction was the deceitfulness of riches. And this is where I wanted to get. The word was not riches are a distraction, but the deceitfulness. The word deceitful means a delusion. It means a false appearance, a false promise. It means an open door that God didn't open. So sometimes, Tiffany, there are open doors, but did God open it?
Gotcha.
I mean, did God open it? And then the question you will ask, well, how do you know whether God opened it? Okay. God is never going to open a door.
Or will he open it if you're not prepared?
Okay, I'm going to get to that. But God will never open a door, okay, that's going to take you away from your calling, your purpose. He's never going to open a door that will take you away from your family. Okay. Because your family should be a priority. Okay. You see what I'm saying? So if God opened a door, it's not going to take you from your relationship priorities or from your calling. And if God opened up a door, that you feel you're not prepared for, he is going to provide what you need to be able to handle that. Gotcha. And sometimes you won't know. So the issue is taking the time to get the mind of God. Mm-hmm. Take the time. Ask yourself questions. Is this just an ego thing? Is this just something I want to do? Did God put this on my heart? Because sometimes God will open a door that will stretch you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For example, I didn't think I had the capacity to be a pastor. Mm-hmm. I never thought that. I never would have picked myself to be a pastor. I didn't feel like I knew enough. I didn't feel, okay. But God supplied it, and I knew he spoke to me, see? So if he spoke to me, then I may not feel prepared, but he is going to supply everything I need to get the job done.
I feel like I have so many questions.
Okay, let's talk.
Look, we don't have enough time, but
my goodness, time is, I got some questions for you.
Well, I was gonna go back into that whole thing.
You don't want me to ask you no questions?
Okay, you can go. I was trying to. Okay, go ahead. Ask me. Okay.
In your generation, what do you think is one of the biggest distractions leaders face?
In my generation, one of the biggest distractions, I would say the false. I don't know what the word is. The false realities. And so I guess in essence, I think people in my generation look at success of others and they make
I think that's good.
Their realities.
I think that's good.
And so they don't necessarily see the flip side of certain things, because some people may have gotten to a position of success, but they may have counseled out other things like family or spending time with friends and different things like that, which can be great. So I think social media has done a big thing of making people believe that they have to reach this high level of success that may not be for them.
Well, would you call that comparisons?
Yes.
I think that's the challenge that your generation have that my generation didn't have. I think social media tends to paint a picture. And when you go online and you scrolling and you're on Instagram or whatever,
right.
you're looking at all or videos of people's lives and stuff like that, they're painting a picture that's not real.
Yeah.
Most of the time it's not real. You don't get the struggle that they may be having in their marriage. You don't get the problems that they be having with their children. For the most part, you don't get that. You don't get the fact that the car is a rental. Yeah. You don't get the fact that the house doesn't belong to them or they got a mortgage on the house, you know what I mean? And not mortgage on the house, not a sin. I'm just saying people look like they can be rich and got it all together.
Or the false reality. I see for our generation, the false reality of everybody being a CEO or everybody being a business owner. And that may not be the reality. Not everybody is called to be a CEO. Not everybody is called to be a business owner of certain things that they may have. Some people are called to just make an impact in their community. But on social media, that may not be the glitz and the glamour. But that may be what you're called to do.
Now, and see, we're talking about self-discipline, committed, focus, finish. Sometimes in your generation, younger than my generation, you see where someone is.
Yeah.
But you don't see the process. And sometimes you can take an event mentality and what was a process mentality. They can look at my house where I'm living now. They can look at my life now. And they don't see me talking to a handful of people and crying on the way home because nobody's coming to the church.
Yeah.
They don't see my wife and I in between the seats trying to find coins to go out and eat. They don't see the fact we couldn't take a vacation and a God family and stuff like that help us to go on a vacation.
Yeah.
They don't see us renting this house. They don't see us starting in our house. They don't see us at the funeral home paying $100 a month and having to believe God for that. So sometimes the false reality is that I can have that now.
Yeah.
But not understanding that what you're seeing didn't start out that way.
Or even just normal is okay. I read a quote that they were talking about normal is okay too. Like, not everybody has to be a person who work from home. Going into a business and working in business is okay. And I think sometimes in social media, we give this false reality of if a person going into a job, then they're not being successful or, doing their own rules or making their own decisions and stuff like that. But also, too, on the flip side, not everybody is going to be a bodybuilder, or not everybody is going to be this skinny person. Like, normal is okay. And I think that's one of the things I wish our generation would understand. Like, when I say normal, not saying that God can't use the normal, but normal in the sense of what society would say is, above and beyond, that normal is okay.
Finishing, we talked about self-discipline is connected to a commitment, connected to focus, connected to finishing. In my case, and I think it's true in any Christian leader, finishing is about the grace of God. It really is. It's about you finding out purpose, values, priorities, and making a firm decision based off that.
Yeah.
You focusing, but God got to give you the grace to focus, because there's so many things. And I think we're reading people struggle focus is because God created us with many talents and abilities. Everybody got several talents and abilities.
Yeah.
And so we try to make all of them work. We try to do everything. You know what I mean? And so it takes grace to focus. It takes grace to make the decision, and it takes grace to finish.
Yeah.
God will give you grace if you're asking for him. He'll give you strength to finish, because there were a lot of times I wanted to quit, Tiffany. I really did. I wanted to quit.
Yeah.
But God would give me the grace and the strength to continue, because I kept a journal and I kept reminding myself what God was saying to me.
Yeah. If
you lose sight of what God is saying, you get caught up in all the different things. And then there are things we just want to do.
Yeah.
And so we get off God thing and we end up doing good things.
I think that's a good ending point, that grace helps you do the things that he's called you to do.
Yeah.
And we can't talk about everything, but we do want you to grab the book, The Big Pivot. Again, you can share this with friends or family members. You can start a book club, small group. We really want you to get this book, because you said that the next move of God will be in the area of character. And so we want everyone who gets this book to be developed as a leader and to grow. You
go to MikeMooreMinistry.com and you can get information about how you can get the book. Listen, I believe it's going to be a blessing. And what we're doing, we're just sharing little snippets of what's in the book. We can't cover everything. But in our next session, we're going to talk about humility.
Okay.
We're going to talk about pride versus humility.
Okay.
Because I talk about that. I compare a prideful leader with a humble leader.
Okay.
And you want to choose humility. Listen, we're out of time. Thank you so very much. Please push that like button. Won't you give us some remarks in the chat? Let us know how you're being blessed by this. And we look forward to seeing you next time.